Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We got a lot of Paradise talk from last year. I think it's because they're all off contract now. One of my favorite folks from last season's Paradise was Kat Izzo. She got engaged on the beach to John Henry. It didn't work out. What I love most about Kat Izzo is she's unapologetically herself. She's, she's going to share in this interview we're going to look at how she's got an anxious attachment style. I just love it when people talk about who they are and why they tick the way they do. It used to be if we didn't agree with somebody, we would just call them the B word. Oh, that person's such a you-know-what, or a brat. I'm brat, but it's got a different meaning now because of Gen Z. Brat boy summer. But either way, I like hearing people talk about how they tick. And here we have Kat Izzo discussing why her relationship with John Henry didn't work. Part of it had to do with him not moving to San Diego. The other part had to do with the fact that she was dealing with a lot of internet hate from the audience. So here's the initial clip that I saw. Let's actually click on this, and then I'll play a couple longer form content. But this usually has a pretty good summary. So for those that don't have the full 15 minutes, where did it go? Ash Nordman. Let's go find Ash Nord. Sorry, right here. Let's go to Ash. There it is. Let's go to Ash. You can go listen to her podcast. It's called Not Ashamed. I think she does a pretty good job. Here's what she had to say.
When I was in the middle of it, I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm not good enough. The whole world is telling me I'm all these things. Like, maybe I am these things. Like, you experience a level of unworthiness that is unmatched.
There it is. That's what it's like being on the show. A level of unworthiness.
I think at the time, he really just didn't understand his emotions. He wasn't connected enough with his body and his mind to be able to say, this is what I'm feeling. So in turn, he just kind of created narratives in his head about who I am and what I am, and then put that in combination with what's being said, what's being shown.
So you think that influenced how he felt about you?
It could.
All right, so how the edit could influence how John Henry felt about her. Let's rewind and play a few clips. You can go listen to the full episode. It's the Not Ashamed podcast. Kat Izzo, internet haters, heartbreak, and collateral damage.
It's hard. Someone asked me yesterday, they said, would you do it again? And in no way was I hesitant in saying no. Like, I would do it again and again and again, because I feel like it's just shifted my trajectory of life. It's allowed me to lean into, I don't know, I feel like it's because I went through so much hardship, I had to do the work to become a better person and live in alignment with, like, the energy around me and, like, just be more perceptive and all the things. So I feel
adversity can teach you a lot about yourself, and none of us know what it's like to go through what they go through on The Bachelor. None of us. And someone like Kat, pretty girl like Kat, she has to deal with a lot of angry people, kind of parsing apart everything she says or does. She wasn't perfect on the show. I'm not apologizing for her, but she's got some of the same DNA that I have, which is the terrible feeling of being misunderstood. And part of that's probably that we share the same anxious attachment style, which is you just want people to like you. It sucks. Guys, let me tell you right now, nothing sucks more than wanting people to like you in an industry like a judgmental audience that doesn't want to like you. Oh boy, it's rough.
I guess in general.
Let's talk about Paradise, because I feel like obviously in The Bachelor, you didn't find love, And so in Paradise, there was a lot more that went down. You obviously ended up with John Henry, and there's been a lot of things that have transpired since then. But when you look back, what was so, you keep saying there was a lot of painful and hard things that you went through. What was hard about reality TV, and what is hard right now?
I think if I could say the hardest thing in general was the lack of control that I experienced. Not just with the show and how it was being perceived, but you are so afraid to speak your truth because you see how people's minds are no matter what you say, it's going to be taken out of context, or no matter what, you're going to be met with something negative.
Yeah.
And the way to combat that is to not even address the audience that's judgmental. Again, I struggle scratching that itch. You can't change their minds. They're haters. And what they think of you is none of your business.
So you feel just out of control with your thoughts, with your body. Like I felt so out of control. And somebody who lives a life trying to control everything around them just based on my own.
Are you super type A like me?
Like, no. Like I want to be. Like I'm both. Like I'm both.
I feel like you are a little both because you told me you're like, I'm not timely. And like, I'm very timely. I'm very type A, like regimented.
I am like a Gemini through and through. Like I have this side of me.
Oh, what a Gemini. Oh, as a Taurus, I think the whole system's made up. But what do I know? 10 minutes. Let's go forward. It gets really good. So she discusses the fact that when she met John Henry, she said, look, you want to be with me, you got to get with, what's it, if you want to be my lover? She basically saying, if you want to be my lover, you got to move to San Diego. That's kind of the idea. She said, I'm moving to San Diego. And then as it turned out, John Henry didn't want to move. I guess my thought is, did he not want to move to San Diego because he couldn't get work there? Or was he realizing this relationship wasn't all it was cracked up to be?
So they were just so unkind. Like no matter what I said, because even the narrative they showed, I wouldn't say is like this horrible thing, right?
Yeah,
like, it's
I didn't feel like it was.
Yeah, but granted, that's my perception. But at the same time, like I just had little control over feeling even comfortable speaking, and like just I felt like going through it. And I was alone at the time, and I had people virtually, but when you're such in a state of like fight or flight, like you can't even respond. Like I was so incapable of my own body, my own thoughts, my own feelings, like everything.
Was it like the backlash you were getting, or what was like so hard about that?
I think it was, the backlash, and somebody who's already struggled, like, and I thought healed, like this feeling of like being misunderstood, like feeling misunderstood was horrible. And I was working nights, which naturally you're on less sleep, so you're not really.
All right, so listen, here's my thought on this. Unless you've been in the public eye and had to deal with snark subreddits talking about you, discussing your looks, why you're disingenuous, unless you've been in that situation, I just don't think you can relate. This is a very unique scenario. Like I've said before, to some degree, I can relate with some of I call it, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's just overwhelming, because in real life, I've traveled, performed in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and I've never been talked to or had to deal with a situation the way you get every single day online. Those people can't be negotiated with. They're technically not real humans. They're just faceless things in the abyss, but our brain treats them as people whose opinions matter. They don't. And that's the struggle there, is to kind of tune that out. It's not easy. And it's taken me years to sort of figure out. Cat Izzo, for the first time, was hated by a very small group of people
in my life, right? So, anyways, that was my like foundation. So when I was going through the hardship, and I relied on him to be there at the time because he was the closest thing to me. My family was obviously a flight away, and he wasn't. It made it a lot harder. And then just my girlfriend from the show. I mean, if I didn't have her, I call her in the morning every day. We would talk all day. She was still in her transition of jobs, so like, she was there for me, like as like, I didn't have anyone personally, but we would just be on FaceTime, and the phone would just be like in the kitchen. And I would be like making breakfast, whatever. But I felt a presence of somebody, so like I wasn't alone. So I was so grateful to have people like her and my girlfriend Allie, like just there to be there if I was like going through an emotion. Or just in general, like to just not feel alone. But being alone really affects how you feel about yourself and how you make sense of your emotions. So I feel like that setting really contributed to how intense the emotions were.
Yeah.
Or maybe now I'm just like healed. So it's not, I look back and I'm like, it's not that bad, or I'm trying to excuse it, but it was a lot because of that setting. And then I'm like, I moved for him, and then he isn't even there for me when I need him.
What do you mean he wasn't there for you?
So it got
good
really
question.
Bad. So there was a moment in, like, I guess the beginning of our demise where...
The beginning of our demise. Oh, how dramatic. And by the way, I get what Kat's saying. I would say this. I guess the advice I would give people coming off of the show is find someone who's not your partner to help you work through the complexities, because they're also in the deep end. So he's trying to deal with all of the hate he's receiving. He's also dealing with the fact that nobody likes his fiance. I mean, that's got to be terrible for both of them. And you need outside people to help you work that through, because it was almost like Tino and Rachel Recchia. Rachel couldn't handle a lot of the heat she was getting, even though her season was going perfectly fine, and it just the toxicity. What healthy relationship could overcome that?
It was one of the episodes the heat was like next level, and I anxiously attached to people. I know that about myself now, but at the time I didn't.
I have anxious attachment also.
Yeah, we love abandonment wounds. But
I have a fear of rejection, like big time.
It's not that I fear rejection. I fear of somebody like not seeing me and like.
Ash said, I fear rejection. And then Kat said, it's not that I fear rejection. So Ash just got rejected by her bid to relate to Kat. Oh, boy.
If you reject me, I'm like, okay, you don't like me.
Yeah.
But why don't you like me? Why am I not good enough? What do I need to prove? What do I need to do? Like, how do I need to show my worth? However, in this moment, when you have the whole world telling you how little you are, and you want your person to see you and be there for you and give you reassurance, their opinion is the only one that matters.
Exactly.
And I just, honestly, I didn't even need that as much. I just needed his presence. Like, I just needed someone. And
he might be the avoidant type, right? She might be the anxious type who just wants someone to be on the other end of the line. And, I mean, if you look at his job as a diver, he's probably an introvert avoidant type, because what better place to go avoiding things than the deep blue sea?
Like the support, like just to feel like you weren't alone.
Yeah, in love.
She's like, I got to talk to you. He's just like tightening up his helmet. He's like, I can't hear you.
And he wasn't really communicating, and that's okay. Like, he was, I think, struggling emotionally too. And I think he had these, I think it's scary for him to, I think at the time, he really just didn't understand his emotions. He wasn't connected enough with his body and his mind to be able to say, this is what I'm feeling. So in turn, he just kind of created narratives in his head about who I am and what I am, and then put that in combination with what's being said, what's being shown.
So you think that influenced how he felt about you?
It could.
Like, you think the opinions people had of you, he started like going, yeah, maybe that is how she is.
Which is,
yeah, and then she's got to, it's just, this is your typical anxious attachment type, like Kat is, like I am, which is she's trying to do the work for John. She's trying to be John's therapist. Again, I might be projecting here, but and you just can't. You can't tell somebody how they're feeling, even if you're right, if they're not willing to cope with their feelings.
it's valid. I mean, yeah, of course. And that is valid. Let's talk about it. Like, and look at who you have in front of you, somebody who's willing to be like willingness. So I think he was going through that internally, and he might have not been able to like put words to it or make sense of it. And that is okay. Like, that is fine. But for me, when I was in the middle of it, I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm not good enough. The whole world is telling me I'm all these things. Like, maybe I am these things. Like, you experience a level of unworthiness that is unmatched. Because the one person you want validation from isn't giving it to you, which, granted, sure, you should be able to do that for yourself. But you know what? This is not something that you can correlate in real life, because it is next level. You are not able to, like, in real life, sure, if a guy isn't giving me what I need, I should be like on my shit, I'm good enough. But no.
But this is also your fiance.
I'm on my phone, and every time I log onto my phone, another text, another comment, another tag, another moment of somebody just giving perception about who you are based on what they're seeing, not who they know.
Exactly.
And then you're like, oh, I suck. Like, what's wrong with me?
Oh, it's just tragic. We got to share some love for Kat Izzo here. I get it. You're going to say, wow, she should have just put her phone away. That's like telling an alcoholic to stop drinking. Okay? Because an anxious attachment person, it takes one to know one, is just trying to put out those fires. And it's manic. And it's a level of anxiety I don't wish upon anyone. I feel sorry for her. But I'm glad she's sharing her story. And I hope she's learning that as much as she wants to be a people pleaser, sometimes the best things that can happen for you is having the internet burn that off. Just burn it off. Because what they think of you is really, and I truly already said this, none of your gosh dang business. All right. Little reminder for all of us. We'll be back this afternoon with the Rush Hour podcast. I'm covering the Olympics. You're going to need to be around and subscribed if you haven't already to the Rush Hour podcast with Dave Neal. So go check that out. Plus, if you want the behind the scenes of my interview with Courtney Robertson, she's going to be interviewing me like literally right now. So you can go watch that on the Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal, and be a part of the private membership community. Have a good one, everybody. Be well. See you out there.